First and Now, the official BC Lions podcast. We're back, keeping up the weekly tradition. Matt Baker, Nick Kowalski, and we'll get into what we're going to be doing on this episode, talk about player evaluation, the draft, with special guest Ryan Rigmaiden, Lions Assistant GM. But first of all, Nick, look, for those watching this podcast, quite the hairstyle. Is that your Phoenix haircut? What do you got going on there?
Yep, it's got a little haircut before I go on a little vacation here, so it was well overdue. I'm a man of many hairstyles. You'll begin to find that out about me, but this is probably more so normal for me.
Well, yeah, no, it's we talked a little bit about how you're new to the West Coast, new to the Lower Mainland, moving here from Winnipeg. Have you sort of settled into a routine? Like, you found a hairdresser, obviously. You found a couple of little spots you like to go drink and eat and hang out. You've been to a Mariners game. You've made some progress here.
Yeah, and you took me out to a Canucks game too this past long weekend. A lot of fun there. But yeah, I would say I'm pretty settled in now. It's been a couple months now that I've been out here on the West Coast. So, and I continue to echo this too. I'm absolutely loving it. The scenery, the food, restaurants, all of that. It's been still fantastic.
And well, it's easy for you to say that as I think they're having snow in Winnipeg, aren't they? At least they were last week.
Yeah, they've had a tough winter. I don't want to rub it in. I can maybe just leave it at that. But I mean, training camp's in less than a month for everybody. That's how we'll look at it. Positive.
Snow in late April. Yeah, no thanks. Anyway. But they're not complaining. They're going for a third straight Grey Cup. It's up to us to help prevent that, obviously. But yeah, Canuck game, and funny story to share. You and I went to the Canucks and Stars on Monday of this week. Monday, right?
Monday, yeah.
Entertaining night. Canucks win 6-2. At least at that point, looked like they were at least going to be staying in the playoff race. They've had a loss to Ottawa in a shootout since we went to that one. But you and I, we get on the SkyTrain. I get off at my stop. You're staying on until your stop. And a funny thing happened. As I step out of the train, put my AirPods in, and they're not connected. Okay, sometimes that happens, but then you just try to reconnect it. Doesn't work. Finally, I get the message on the phone. These are not your AirPods. So long story short, you and I got our AirPods mixed up somehow.
Yep. Well, I know how, but
how did that happen?
Well, on social media, you threw the blame at me. Hey, I don't know if that was sarcasm, but
I think because it kind of came to me all at once. So security measures, you enter the venue, you have to empty your pockets, right?
Yes.
So wallet, keys, cell phone. So you're behind me. I get my stuff and I reach for my stuff. I think, I didn't realize I put my AirPods on there. I must have done that inadvertently. So I grabbed it. You go through the checkpoint and you say, did you take my AirPods? I'm like, yeah, I guess, Nick, I guess I took your AirPods. Sorry, I thought those came out. So I think what happened obviously was I had put your AirPods in my pocket and I reached in and grabbed mine to give to you is obviously what happened.
Yep. And I think that's outing yourself.
That's outing myself. Yeah, I own it. Yep.
Well, that's why I was going to reply to you on social media. I was going to really explain that story because I that's exactly how I remembered it happening. But kudos to you for outing yourself. But it was a funny story too, because after you left, I put mine in because we were talking for a bit on the train. It was pretty packed still, but after you left, I was by myself standing, and mine didn't work either, obviously, or yours didn't work for me. And I just kind of thought to myself, we'll figure that out when I get home. And then I saw your message and put two and two together.
All that's so deflating, right? I mean, I got about a 15-minute walk home from the SkyTrain. I'm a guy, if I'm out for a run, if I'm out at the gym, if I'm out walking, like if I'm on the train by myself, I like to listen to music, listen to podcasts, whatever. And you feel kind of you feel kind of empty when you're walking home without being able to listen to your AirPods. So, but again, that's my fault. Lesson learned.
Oh yeah, 100%. You do feel empty, but I had about a 15-minute ride left too. So, in terms of first world problems, I can deal with that.
Then, of course, I took the next day off, so we had to wait an extra day to exchange the AirPods.
Yeah. It was funny too. When after we did that today, I was going home and I was thinking, like, what if we just somehow didn't exchange them properly and I still have yours? Because I am heading out to Arizona tomorrow. So then I would even have them for the plane ride. That would have been a disaster, actually.
Yeah, then we have problems, plane ride and everything. So
I would have had to probably buy some at the airport or buy something at the airport if that went down. I couldn't go a plane ride without headphones.
Well, you've got easily a 2.5 hour flight, I think.
Vancouver, yeah, I think it's at least 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, crisis averted, and we can just laugh about it now. So we've shared AirPods. Anyway, we're going to speak with Ryan Rigmaiden here very shortly, BC Lions Assistant General Manager / Director of Player Personnel, and kind of get his thoughts on the day-to-day, maybe branch out a bit and talk about how he got into the business. He, of course, was a longtime Lions employee, left for a couple of years to go to Winnipeg. And the player talent evaluation process, Nick, is really an exciting part of this whole puzzle.
Mm-hmm. And Ryan's been boots on the ground throughout the entire offseason, right? He's based in North Carolina, but he's been at different free agent camps coming up and going to more that are coming up. And I'm excited to talk to him about not only those, but also free agency.
Yeah. Dallas, Vegas, DC. There's a free agent camp coming up in Seattle. Him and Neil have been to Vegas, the East-West Bowl stuff. The Senior Bowl, of course, a very big part of it. It's a 24-hour a day, 365-day a year. Well, maybe not quite that intense, but it doesn't stop. You can leave no stone unturned when it comes to evaluating players and putting the best possible players on the field for a run at a Grey Cup. And I'm sure we'll talk about NFL and CFL drafts with Ryan Rigmaiden coming up here in just a moment on First and Now. All right, we got that recording in progress notification, which means we have the man, Lions Assistant GM, Director of Player Personnel, Ryan Rigmaiden. Did I get all your titles in there, Riggs?
Yeah, I'm not sure what they all mean, but you got them all. Thank
well,
you.
I think that goes for all of us here. Matt Baker, Nick Kowalski, and we've been wanting to talk with Ryan for a while here on First and Now, and I know we're at the height of getting ready for draft, and we've just wrapped up a round of free agent camps. Of course, we're inside of 3 weeks to go until Kamloops. Riggs, buddy, it's here, man. I mean, we knew it was going to be a shorter off season given what 2021 brought us, but how geeked are you right now?
Yeah, no, tremendously excited. So we've talked about this before over the years, but it's almost Christmas morning for us. So that first day of camp, when you get the new players on the field and see what they could do, and then 3 or 4 short days later, the vets get there and you get rolling.
Take us through the day-to-day life for you now. You're in Raleigh. You've got a couple pro days coming up, I know, but for some of our fans who may not know the ins and outs of really preparing, describe your football life right now.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of quarterly. So I'll start in the fall because that's kind of where the NC2A and U Sports stuff happens. So we're going to football games and making campus visits just like every scout in the NFL and of course in the CFL. So you're out visiting schools and watching tape and going to games, and then slowly that fall turns into winter and you got to do all the all-star games, and so you're traveling down to Florida and Las Vegas and California and checking out all the players that have been fortunate enough to be selected in the all-star games. As you're getting into spring, you start getting into pro days, and then that gets mixed in with, of course, our own free agent time and our free agent workouts that we're doing. That goes into our draft, the NFL draft, the global draft, and then that goes right into training camp. So in training camp, that's 30 days of constant evaluation and trying to put together the best team possible for the BC Lions. And after that, we get a short break, and then we go right into NFL training camps that last week of July. So for us, I kind of break it up into quarters, but it's a nonstop, fun, exciting time to evaluate and just have one of the best professions on the planet.
Yeah, you'll know they'll be racking up all those air miles, especially once the NFL camps get going at the end of July. But let's hop back in the time machine a little. 5-9 season, second straight season out of the playoffs, simply unheard of with our organization lately. But that's pro sports for you, right? Ebbs and flows. And so take us back to, I guess, the first meetings with Neil and Coach Rick. What was the one area you guys set out to prioritize? And do you feel you've done that, Ryan, in free agency?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that everybody has to have is good communication. And the first thing you usually talk about is what your identity is. And so, what kind of team do we want to have? So the biggest thing from my end, and I think I could speak for Neil and the personnel staff as well, is, you want to be adding the right players. You don't just want to be collecting players. And so, you have those conversations on, hey, what do we want this team to be? But also, what do we want position by position? What do we want these guys to be? What are the characteristics and the traits of those positions? So, from then on, that's kind of the roadmap of what you want to build and how you want to build it. The next step is going out there and executing that plan. So, we come up with our list of players before free agency, and we identify some players that we feel could come in and help out in various ways and in various roles. And then once free agency starts, it's our job to get that done. So that's the process. But the executing of that process is the biggest factor.
And from what we see on free agency from the public eye, it seems like it's a very fast-paced day, crazy environment. As someone who's behind the scenes and yourself, is that like, how does the communication with you, Rick and Neil, work on a day like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly fast-paced. So this year, on top of a normal free agent period, we had the Shrine game in Las Vegas, one of the All-Star games. So Neil and I were down there evaluating, the players that we'll probably see in the next year or two, or maybe even 3. But in the meantime, your phone's constantly blowing up because you're talking to the players, you're talking to your coaching staff, you're talking to the agents, you're talking to the individual players themselves, and you're recruiting them a little bit as well. And so that full week was very hectic and very exciting. But the way you separate yourself is in that preparation. And so for the weeks leading up into that, we had a really good idea of the players that we were going to target, the players that maybe we weren't going to target for whatever reason. Maybe they're good players, but they're not a fit for us for one reason or another. And so by identifying the proper players, it narrows that target list down, and then you really go after those players as hard as possible.
Mm-hmm. And obviously the Lions made quite a big splash on free agency day. There was Michael O'Connor at quarterback, but also Luches Purifoy, guys with experience. But one I was curious about and really excited about too is Delvin Breaux. He's an interesting story too, because he was retired originally, right? So from the communication you got with Neil and Rick, how did the Breaux signing really come to be?
Yeah, honestly, that came on kind of late. So we knew he was going to be available. We didn't know what his interest level was going to be, but as the week leading up to the start of free agency happened, we kind of got the sense that this might happen. And so, first day of free agency, we were making those calls. There was interest there, and it kind of came on kind of fast and furious, if you will. So there's players like that you're hoping are going to be available, and then there's other players that you feel like maybe you've got a better chance to get. He was one of the players that probably was an outlier, and we didn't know if we were going to get him, and then we did. And so adding him and Purifoy and Stove and Woody Barron and Sean White and Betts and Menard. I mean, these guys are excellent, proven veteran players that can come in and help us right now. And so adding that group into the young group that we had last year, who we hope is going to take that next step, we felt this was just a perfect match. So the players that we added in free agency, we feel like they're going to come in, step on the field right away, show the young guys what the CFL and BC Line football is all about, and both of those groups take that next step together.
As we recording this on middle of the week Wednesday, we didn't get some great news. Steven Richardson, just bad luck, happens to everybody, but that's obviously a big loss, at least as far as the start of the season goes, Ryan. But what can you say about maybe some of the others at that position that can maybe step up and try to earn a starting spot in Kamloops? It's going to be an intense battle.
Yeah. So yeah, hearing the news about Stove obviously wasn't great. He's a player that is not only special on the field and what he can do, but he's one of the greatest human beings off the field and in the locker room. So replacing him isn't going to be easy, but also we feel like we might be able to get him later on in the year. And so we'll just see medically how that all shakes out. But adding Woody Barron, another player at defensive tackle that's a proven pass rusher, that's something that we targeted. We felt like the DN or the D line that we had last year was good, but it needed to take that next step. And we felt like with that injection of veteran talent with Matthew Betts at DN and David Menard, that we were going to get that. So collectively as a group, we feel like that's an excellent addition to guys like O'Boom and Josh Banks and Tim Bonner and some of the other guys. So again, as a whole, we feel like that group is vastly improved, and we're going to be able to get off the quarterback next year.
Let's flip around to the other side of the line. It's always a topic. Even Coach Rick, we had him on a few weeks ago, and he says, yeah, ever since I've been here, that's all people want to talk about is what are you going to do on the offensive line? But really, I mean, we talked a little bit in Ottawa Grey Cup week about a guy like Kent Perkins, slots in at right tackle, gets the team's most outstanding offensive lineman nod. Couple of savvy veterans as far as nationals go, Suk Chung, Peter Godber, Phil Norman back in the fold, going back to the American side of things. But what can you say, Riggs, about the offensive line and how excited you are to see who can emerge this season?
Yeah, no, we're really excited. So a couple things. Number one, we do need to get better. We feel like we've taken some steps to do that. Kent Perkins, who you mentioned at right tackle, who came in as a rookie last year and took almost every snap. We expect him to get better. He already had a pretty dang good rookie year, so we're proud of him in that regard, and just feel like a lot of these other rookies that he's going to take that next step. But we made a change at left guard. Things are certainly going to be open there, but David Neville is a guy that we feel like as a staff, we've groomed him and he's ready to take that next step. He's a big guy. He's got that versatility to play left tackle and left guard. There's not a lot of Canadians or Americans for that matter that can come in and do that. Philip Norman, who's been with the club for a little while, we feel like he can come in and do some things in addition to the rookies that we've signed. So the other thing that we've done is we've left the flexibility open to start 3 Americans up front. So we don't feel like we have to do certain things with the ratio that maybe some other clubs have to do. So we want the best 5 guys, and the coaching staff will do that. They don't care who you are, what nationality you are, if you're drafted, if you weren't. The best 5 are going to play. We feel like again collectively the additions that we've made, and then with guys that we've groomed along like David Neville, we feel like they can take that next step.
Another thing that stood out to me in the offseason was that who was brought back, but specifically at the receiver position. It seems like, I mean, it might be self-explanatory of why Lucky Whitehead and Brian Burnham were brought back, but overall, like with that receiver group, like pretty much everybody is back from a season ago. And can you just talk about why that group is one you want to bring back together?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, guys like Lucky and Burnham. I think it's pretty obvious to even the casual fan why we brought those guys back. Those guys are 2 exceptional players that are the best in the league at what they do, with very different but equal skill sets in terms of having that impact on the field. So Dominique Rhymes, him coming back and signing for multi-years, that was a big deal for us too. So we think we can use him a little bit better this year and take advantage of what he does best, which is go up and get the football. So he was asked to do some different stuff last year, but I think we're going to use him a little bit different this year and take advantage of that skill set. Getting Javon Katoy back, especially on a multi-year deal, we feel like that was absolutely huge because we wanted to give Nathan Rourke the best chance possible with the most weapons possible. And so the things that he does at his size and being a national player is very, very special. And so we're happy to have him back as well. And then honestly, the young guys, we are extremely excited about TJ Roming, Keon Hatcher. These are guys that got a little bit of playing time last year, but like a guy like TJ, he came in a little bit late. Keon came into camp and battled some injuries and got on the field. But, you know, every dominant CFL player was a rookie once and kind of needed that break to get on the field, whatever it may have been. So whether it was just talent or injury or scheme or whatever it was, getting past that threshold is usually the key. And so with what we have back, and then the addition of the rookies, which we think are extremely special because of the skill sets that they bring, we couldn't be more excited about this group.
Yeah, very quickly to jump in. I mean, we're talking receivers. Two guys were in the same situation in different camps, both given the jersey number, I think 74. Those two guys, Emmanuel Arsenault, Brian Burnham, and both have told me many times that camp maybe wasn't going too well, and they had to prove themselves in that first preseason exhibition game. And the rest, as they say, is history. So,
well, and you see, you know, like bringing up Burnham, for example, you know, Burnham was on the practice squad for, I think, the majority of 2 years until that break happened. So, you know, he's kind of that go-to for us when you start talking about other rookies that you're recruiting and you're talking to about what this game is and how to execute that and get on the field. But talk about a guy that put in his dues and worked his tail off. And then he became a CFL All-Star and one of the best receivers in BC history. So, you know, those are things that are maybe a little bit uncommon, but he certainly put in that work that was just incredible, and it all paid off for him.
Have some fun. Riggs,
Mm-hmm.
You've been with this organization a long time. Stop in Winnipeg in between, but you know, you have an Arena League background, right? Spokane Shock, Washington State guy. You're based in North Carolina now. What, from what you can remember, what made you want to get into this line of business?
Oh man, it was during the Joe Montana, San Francisco 49ers years. My dad was a huge 49ers fan, and we'd watch games, and I wondered why they were so good. And I remember asking uncles and dad and everybody, hey, how is this team so good and so dominant? And you saw them in the Super Bowls do what they did. And you know, I remember them beating, you know, Denver 55-10 or whatever it was. And the philosophy and the ability to acquire players was just very, very interesting to me as I got older. So when I got into junior high school, I knew I wasn't going to be a very good football player, unfortunately, with my size and lack of athleticism, if I'm being honest. But I wanted to work on that side of it and see how these teams were put together. So the design and the player acquisition to me was always just really, really important and super interesting. And so when I got the opportunity to start doing that in Spokane, I knew immediately it was something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life.
It's a great angle. Love it.
And I guess going back to, we talked, or you mentioned earlier, the NFL training camp, but another NFL thing that's coming up is the draft. And obviously that's not the league we're in, but I'm assuming that night is one you're dialed into, as well as Neil and Rick and the rest of the staff. But what is your actual process on the night of the NFL draft?
Yeah, you know, it's changed a little, right? Now it's, you know, first round is Thursday, you know, rounds 2 and 3 are Friday. And then the rest of the draft is on Saturday. It used to be different. It used to be 1, 2, and 3 on Saturday, and then 4 through 7 on Sunday. So it's different how I grew up with it. But essentially, we take the NFL draft board and I turn it on its head, because the reality is the players that are first through 5th round picks, you know, we're not going to see for probably a while, if at all. And so you take that draft board, turn it on its head, and then you're looking at those guys saying, okay, well, some of these guys are going to get drafted. Some of them are going to be priority free agents or free agents. You know, which ones for us are the right players? Which ones do we feel like can come in and play, but also do the things on and off the field that we want a BC Lion to do? And so from that, it's a filtering process. And then it's no different than what the NFL is doing for those first through 5 rounds. So the biggest difference for us is we've got to wait, right? So those players are going to go to training camp next year. We're going to see them in camp. That's why we go to those camps, and we'll monitor them for the next, 1 to sometimes up to 4 and 5 years. And so from that, you're building reports and you're getting your file on the player in terms of who he is and what his fit's going to be as a BC Lion. So the draft to me now, the first 2 nights is really entertainment. I'm a fan just like everybody else, and got a lot of friends in the league, and so you're happy for them when they feel like they've made a great pick, and hey, I'm a football fan, so I really enjoy the draft. It's one of my favorite days of the year every year. So, but that day 3 now, and really the 24 hours after, where the priority free agents and the free agents get signed, that's our busy time, because there's certainly players right now that are going to be draft eligible that are not going to get that call from the NFL for whatever reason. And from that list and those caliber of players, we're going to be able to add a couple. And those guys are the ones that usually come in and make some impact. So it's exciting as a fan. And then again, on day 3, when it's time to really get working, it's exciting for us.
And then a week later, we have the CFL draft, right? So what have you really seen from this year's draft class with the Canadian draft?
Yeah. It's probably a better question for Rob Ralph, but there's always players. I don't care how strong or how weak the draft is. There's always players that can, drafts that have players that can come in and help. So again, our process, whether it's through free agency or the draft, kind of remains the same. Hey, let's decide who we want to be and how we want to go about acquiring those players, and then do the work. So get in there, watch the film, come up with our board, which, we've been in meetings all week long, and that's not going to change next week either. So you're in a Zoom call like this, and we're all stacking the board. So we've all got different opinions. We all see things a very different way. And that's a positive. The coaches come in and they have guys that they like and guys they don't, and you listen to them and their opinion. And from that, collectively, we build our board. And from that board, hopefully we, add the next Rourke or Jordan Williams or whoever it's going to be.
Yeah, sort of on that front, as mentioned, you spent some time with the Blue Bombers. I think we can all agree their recent run of success, a lot of it has to do with the Canadian talent they've developed. I mean, is that the template, Riggs, for building it as far as stockpiling your national cupboard, so to speak?
Yeah, I think that's a template for every team. You can't have success in the CFL without having excellent national talent. So Winnipeg has certainly had a tremendous run for a variety of reasons, Americans and Canadians, and then obviously the guys making those decisions have done a really, really good job. But I don't think we look at them as a template in terms of, hey, we've got to do it like Winnipeg does. Certainly there are things that they do great, which we feel like we do a good job with that as well. And maybe philosophically some of those things line up. But you're exactly right. Finding nationals is the cornerstone of how you win in this league, and you have to do it in order to have success. So it's probably our most important process in terms of building for the future.
Very well said. Thanks for this. I know you're a busy guy, and like we said, man, none of this protocol stuff this year. Let's get together in Kamloops, maybe go out and have some beers and some wings like we did pre-2020, right? I mean,
the old days. That's right.
No more playing games via Zoom and all that. That's over, right?
Human contact's good, bud. It'll be good to see you guys.
Likewise. And hey, belated congrats on your appointment to assistant general manager. And yeah, let's plan for bigger and brighter things in 2022 and beyond that.
You bet, bud. Okay, I'll see you guys in camp.
Be good.
Thanks, Ryan.
See you guys. You bet.
Ryan Rigmaiden, Lions assistant general manager, director of player personnel, other titles not named. Fascinating convo there, Nick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of good insight into the kind of behind the scenes stuff that went on during not only free agency, but what's going to go on for the draft. We went over, I was really curious to his outlook on the NFL draft and how that affects his job, really. So it's a pretty cool answer to hear that he really starts out the day 1 and day 2 as more of a fan, right? And rooting for his his colleagues or friends within the NFL, and then on day 3 when is really when it picks up for his actual job.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard thing to forecast year in and year out, because take a look at last year. Our first round pick, Daniel Joseph, a defensive back. That's a guy who's hoping to get drafted later next week in the NFL, right? So are we going to see him this year? That's going to depend on what happens there. Second pick from a year ago, Alaric Jackson, offensive lineman with the Los Angeles Rams. That's a guy being forecast as someone who will probably be in the NFL for a long time, at least on a roster somewhere. So, and of course, last year was different with the pandemic, and players getting an extra year of eligibility was a big thing. So we knew we weren't going to see those first 2 picks last year. This year at number 3, anyone's guess. Probably looking to take a player who will come into camp and make this roster, because that's very important. We talked about it there with Riggs in terms of that national talent has to be on par with the best teams in the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we even talked to Coach Rick Campbell a while back about this whole process of how maybe the best Canadian players or most talented Canadian players are going to be NFL prospects or possibly NFL players in their future career. So you got to factor all that in, right? It's always interesting to see how CFL teams look at actually selecting their top players, because most times you do have to really find that best fit for your own team and not necessarily the most talented player in the country, because if he's on the NFL team, that's not going to help out your team, right?
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, though. I mean, if you can get a player that's yours, you have their rights, and they're a good player. If they become available, that could be very beneficial to you. But it was excellent stuff. Really love this time of year. May 3rd, the global and the national draft happening all on the same day. Very exciting week for our organization as well, as we finally launched. We've been teasing it for a while. Arrow Up, a firsthand look at a lot of this off-season activity. Episode 1, Arrow Up. Head to bclions.com. You can head to our YouTube channel. You can head to our social media channels. Episode 1 of Arrow Up is dealing exclusively really with the passing of the torch. Michael O'Reilly retiring, Nathan Rourke becoming the starting quarterback, Michael O'Connor being added to that mix as well. We'll chronicle all that. Just your excitement level, Nick, for Arrow Up, the launch of our docuseries.
Very. It's really been a project you and I have really started since I joined here back in January. It's been almost like a daily process for us to talk over things and the planning of all of this. And yeah, it's really cool to see it be live now. And it's only going to keep rolling out now. And we're really not even halfway done even filming it, because we're going to be documenting the draft. We're going to be documenting training camp. Even preseason is going to be the end of this. So there's still a ton to come.
Yeah, the plan, in case you're new to this, listening, not sure what we're up to with it, every Wednesday up until the start of the regular season. So yeah, we're talking draft. We'll be in the war room. Draft will be an episode, and yeah, it's a tribute to the hard work you've done, and we've been planning this for a while. And I think we're all in the same boat. We want to see all CFL teams do this. The Ottawa Red Blacks have been doing something similar as well, behind the R, very nicely done. And there's all kinds of great talent from a content perspective across the CFL, and we're proud to be carrying on that tradition. So kudos to you, and can't wait for episode 2. We're going to talk about free agency, I believe, in episode 2, right? So yep. That's going to be very special. Again, Arrow Up. You can find it, bclions.com. Phoenix, have fun. Stay out of trouble.
Thank you. I'll do my best.
Hopefully you're recovered enough by this time next week. We can talk about it in another episode of First and Now. This has been First and Now. Thank you, Nick Kowalski. Thank you, Ryan Rigmaiden, for joining us. Thanks to you, the listener, the viewer, on whatever podcast platform that tickles your fancy. Be sure to subscribe, tell your friends, leave us a review as well, as we'll talk to you next week on First and Now, the official BC Lions podcast.